Hey sis! From coast to coast, we're bridging the gap between the cisgender and transgender community, creating meaningful dialogue and space to learn and grow.
Join us as we connect with our community, break down tough conversations, and get comfortable being better humans.
At this point, I'm already really panicking because I'm not just thinking, oh God, I'm going to have trouble getting into the border. I'm thinking, this person thinks that I am committing a federal offense of using someone else's passport. This is terrifying. I'm functionally being accused of a major crime right now.
So today on Hey Sis, Isaac and I are super excited to have one of our very own joining us, Emma Stanley, who is
Hello.
Very excited to have you here, Emma. Emma's been working with Simply Good Forms since fall of 2021, and now she is taking her show on the road and going to be working with us from another part of the globe. And we are here to talk about traveling, what it's like if you are a member of the trans community, the non-binary community, what barriers exist. What do you have to think about that the average cis traveler just never has to think about? And with your vast experience in the past and this upcoming trip, we're excited to hear some of your thoughts on that, Emma. So welcome.
I am super pleased to be here and bring my vast experience to bear on this complicated topic. Hi, I'm Emma Stanley. I work with SGF, and I use she, her pronouns. I have been traveling pretty consistently around the world since 2009. And in the past 4 or 5 years, I've been sort of traveling while trans, traveling while queer. And yeah, that's what I'm here to talk about.
I think going back a little bit before we talk about your trip coming up to Thailand, you have kind of a bit of a checkered background of potential arrests at border crossings or challenging situations, which maybe isn't uncommon for some trans people, and maybe it's something people get really nervous about. Do you want to talk a little bit about maybe some of your experiences?
Yeah, we can. Traveling while queer can be a challenge, and traveling while your body and identity don't match your paperwork is terrifying at times. Now, it does have to be said that I have, just to give some context, my background is pretty privileged in like every other area. I am Caucasian, I'm educated. At the time I was married. So I had advantages that an enormous number of people don't have. And so I was, in the end, able to sort of extricate myself from these situations. But it was never me getting me out of these problems. It was people that I knew. And I think that was the scariest part for me. It was only by the grace of who I knew that this didn't become a bigger problem. So I have been presenting feminine for 4 years now, and pretty widely. But because of some other things, which I will get into later, I promise, I have been unable to change my paperwork until a few months ago. And so I was traveling again with a body and an identity that didn't match my official identification. So when I go to airports, I have a really specific set of clothes and mannerisms that I project. I basically dress really androgynously, big hoodies, big jeans. And when I still owned a binder, I would wear it when I started needing one to make sure that I looked at least similar to my identification. And I thought that would be enough. And it was funny. I had my hair tucked up into a hat. I just tried to masculinize a bit. We usually just call it boymoding. And I was really surprised when it didn't work. So I was coming into Thailand because I had just changed a visa. So the problem with that is that I was not traveling for pleasure. I was out of the country I had to leave the country, go to an embassy, change my paperwork, and re-enter the country. And because I was actually working while this was happening, it all needed to happen on a weekend. So it needed to happen in 2 days. So in the 48 hours of the weekend, I had been traveling or waiting in consulate lines for 40 of them at this point. I was coming back into the country. I'd gotten all of my paperwork signed, and I was very tired, but relaxed. So I went up to the counter, give the guy my ticket, my passport. He's checking my visa, and he turns to the first page, sees the pictures, sees the information there, and just looks me in the face and says, "This isn't you." Ooh. And what do you do, right?
Yeah, that'd be pretty scary.
Yeah.
You can't argue with border guards. Yeah, it is a really terrible thing to say at this point. And I am really lucky that he spoke as much English as he did, because at the time I spoke no Thai. And so at very least, we could even have this conversation. So I sort of looked at him and not really thinking about it, said, "Yeah, it is." So for those of you who don't know, never disagree with border guards. They are not fans of it. Now, he was not a bad person. He was super calm about the whole thing, but he was pretty insistent that this was not me. And at this point, I'm already really panicking, because I'm not just thinking, "Oh God, I'm going to have trouble getting into the border." I'm thinking, this person thinks that I am committing a federal offense of using someone else's passport. This is terrifying. I'm functionally being accused of a major crime right now in a foreign country.
And you're exhausted, 40 hours in.
And I'm exhausted. So the nerves are way, way up. Eventually, I kind of calmed down and realized that the other lucky thing is that I'm pretty paranoid. Alongside my hoodie and my hat and my mannerisms, I also have 5 separate pieces of identification. I took out 2 driver's licenses from the countries I'd been in previously, a credit card, all in my old name. And he didn't believe any of them. It wasn't actually until I called my then wife over to vouch for me, which was tricky because she had already gone through, and they don't let you go back through those lines. So she had to sort of shout over the turnstiles that, "Yeah, I know them." It's fine. And at that point, I was allowed to go in. And yeah, it's just amazing to me that we still have a system where there was no way for me to prove who I was. We insist, or people seem to be insisting on these documents that will prove who we are, and they're supposed to look like this. I've had friends from work, coworkers, say that we shouldn't allow changing gender on official documents because, you could use it to fake people out. And yet this document that is supposed to be very much me doesn't have my fingerprint anywhere in it. It has no objective information with which I can prove this is me anywhere in it. And it was a real eye-opener that we trust these documents and these systems so much that when they fail, we have no recourse. This was purely, is this guy going to trust me, or am I going to go to immigration jail? So yeah, that was really terrifying and genuinely an eye-opener.
Yeah. I was just going to
Yep.
jump in really quick.
Absolutely.
So just to confirm as well. So was your paperwork at the time? Did it have? Was it this sex defined as male, or
Yeah.
was it kind of like he looked at the photo and was like, "This doesn't look like you"?
No, my passport at the time had my old name,
Gotcha.
and my old identity, which was male. And apparently I passed way better than I thought I did, to the point where I can't even fake it anymore. Um, yeah, and he just uh, kind of quietly insisted, this is not you.
So if you didn't have all of that ID, like what do you think? I mean, like what do you think would have happened? Or you just probably don't even want to think about what would have happened.
Oh, I've thought about it. I was thinking about it at the time because I suffer from ADHD, and that means my plans to be prepared don't often actually happen. So I knew that I had intended to put all of this identification in my bag, and it turned out this time I had, and that was really lucky. But while I was digging for it, I'm thinking, okay, if I have in fact forgotten to put this in, what am I going to do? And my next idea was to call my boss, because then I can attach myself to a company and say they can call and sort of confirm my identity. Um, but that can't happen in a lineup. So that would have meant finding a space in the airport where I can make a request to call my boss. And even that depends on A, whether they're going to let me do that, and B, I'm just, again, very lucky. I was working for a fairly large company that they probably would have recognized the name of, and my boss he knows me. He's been working there for 20 years. They will trust his word on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's where the rest of my privileges really protected me from this one really vulnerable moment.
And just repeat again. So what border were you crossing? You were going from Thailand, or you're going into Thailand from?
I was returning to Thailand from Laos. When you change visa paperwork, you almost always need to leave the country to do that, so that you're processed with that paperwork when you come in. And of course, COVID has changed most of those rules, but at the time, this was certainly the case.
Yeah.
Right. And I wonder, because well, it's interesting because Forbes, they printed in 2021 some of the top no-go zones for LGBTQ plus people. Now Canada actually rated the safe out of the top 5 places for traveling, but on this no-go zone list was, Nigeria came in at number 1, and Saudi Arabia, but then you have Malaysia and Malawi are up there as being really unsafe travel, which is in sort of that neck of the woods where you're traveling. But for trans people in Thailand, and that is quite safe, isn't it? Once you get there.
Yes, absolutely. It's been amazing. And in fact, the company that I was with was really good about it. There was never any weirdness there. And in a sort of putting their money where their mouth is, they made sure that when I did need to do visa changes, I was not sent to Malaysia to do them. And there are a few countries in the area where if you live there, it's safe, but the rules on the books are not necessarily safe. So Myanmar was not a top choice. It was, the story that I heard on the ground was, it's fine to be there, but don't cross the border. And I have no idea how seriously to take those. It really depends on the border guards and what mood they're in on any particular day.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good point, because even and not a lot of folks realize this too. So Canada has, what's the formal terms of it? I think it's like travel advisories, Canada Travel Advice and Advisories, and typically in that document, and that huge page of all the many countries in the world, they'll list kind of what they advise you do or not do. And in there is a section to us LGBTQ plus people. And, they'll rank it well, not necessarily rank it, but they'll mention even too like hand holding or like public displays of affection or, you know, sleeping in the same bed as someone with the same sex. But it's really interesting to look at how governments, especially in particular Canada, breaks down that perspective of like
Mhm.
foreign countries. So if anyone ever wants, it's definitely not light reading by any means, because there are massive documents to talk about anything from potential illnesses, infections, such like that in other countries. But it's definitely a good reference point and a baseline for people to get if they are traveling.
Well, and it's important to know because, so like for instance, the African country, as I mentioned, Malawi, I think they had written that same-sex acts could result in 14 years in prison for men and 5 years for women. And, you know, places like that would be surprising. So for myself as a parent of a trans child, you hear, you know, before COVID, families taking off and going to Jamaica. I had a friend that had a destination wedding in Jamaica, which we weren't at anyway, but it's not safe for trans people. Jamaica is on that list, and there's a lot of Caribbean places as well. So if you think if you go there, so even if you were, as you mentioned, boymoding, which I'd never heard before, or you can pass. If you get injured or if you need a hospital or you need support, and that could become very difficult for you. Even, I guess, if you're a family traveling down to the States, you know, like just crossing the border here from Canada to the States.
Mhm.
You know, if you have a trans child, don't get sick down there or break your leg in certain states like Texas and several others. But there's a lot of considerations, isn't there?
Yeah, it definitely is a lens through which you experience the world. You have to make every choice with this one more qualifier of is it going to be safe? And when you get to a country, the culture of the country inside it and the laws that are on the books are always going to be different.
Absolutely,
Certainly,
yeah.
the Middle East is pretty famous for being not accepting, but when you actually live there, and I have, it's they don't care nearly as much as you think they do. The trick is that they don't want to hear about it or interact with it, but they don't ask either. It's just kind of a closed topic. It's actually pretty safe unless somebody finds out. And then rather than deal with, as you say, some consequences that can be extremely harsh, they'll usually, the company that I worked for, someone found out one of the teachers was gay and he was quietly flown out of the country that night. They said a student started a rumor, doesn't matter if it's true, pack your bags.
Wow.
Uh, and
Oh,
his life just came to a halt. He had plans, he had a job, he had an apartment, and it all just kind of went away. And this was the like much more low-key, merciful version of this thing. This was like, we're going to get you out of the country so that nothing bad happens to you. So yeah, it can be really quite scary.
Yeah, yeah, and I just want to jump back a little bit to your experience at the border because I know quite often when there's any issue, border guards like to have their immediate reaction be a body search, and that's typically when they
Yeah.
figure out to put in very PG terms what's happening. And I remember one time I was going into Guatemala and everyone was getting body searched. It didn't regard, it had no distinction
Mhm.
if you had potentially something or if you were pulled aside. And I remember because they had two lines, and then one was a a masculine presenting guard, the other one was a feminine presenting guard, and they ushered women to feminine and then masculine to the man. And I remember standing there and I was like,
Where do I go?
where do I
Yeah,
go?
absolutely.
And I kind of, I
Who am I going to
eventually
freak
was,
out the least?
yeah. And I eventually like, my heart was telling me to go towards the feminine guard, but the male guard just, grabbed me and was like, bup, bup. And then like, as soon as he got to like here, he was like, oh, and I was like, it's fine. Like, let's not make a big deal out of it. Like, I'm not gonna like
Yeah.
scream. We're good. I don't have anything
You
on
can be
me.
calm. I will be calm.
Yeah,
I
exactly. We'll
promise.
just act
Let's
like
just
nothing
get through this.
happened.
I
But he
realize this is
felt
weird for you
bad.
too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
absolutely.
felt genuinely bad.
Of
But
course.
it was just kind of like a funny experience because like even non-trans people have that. I can't tell you the amount of times of like butch presenting people that I know who
Yeah.
have been like ushered towards like a male or masculine presenting guard, and they're like, I'm not comfortable with you touching my body.
Well,
So
Anyone who's not presenting in a really heteronormative way is going to cause a certain amount of confusion at those stations.
yeah.
what happens if you're traveling with people that don't know you're trans? Like, what if you're traveling with friends and they don't know that you're trans and you're in that situation? Like, that's
I guess
another.
I do now.
Yeah, surprise. But this is interesting because Emma and I, we had a conversation, Isaac, kind of behind the scenes like a couple weeks ago, which made me think deeper about, wow, travel and that. But what about, so you're not like in a body search, but you go through like that scanner, that body scanner that goes up and
Oh,
down.
like the turnstile, like yeah.
What if you're wearing a packer? Like, say you're a teen, you're traveling with your family, you're wearing a packer, an STP. Like, would that be a concern that a parent or just a person that is wearing something like that? Would that be kind of something that you might want to think about before you travel? Or
I don't want to jump in here, but I don't know what all it detects. So like for instance, like I have a heart monitor and they've never asked me ever about it. And I'm like, it could be okay, if Canada Border Security is listening right now, it is not a bomb, but it could be a bomb. Like it could be a bomb. I'm not flying with any bombs, I promise. But like, and I've never had anyone pull me aside for it or like inquire about it. So I don't like. I think with those ones in particular, I mean within Canada at least, I think it only detects like certain types of metals and substances. So if it's like a liquid or like a metal, but don't quote me on that.
It's an interesting thing. I know I've read an article that it was picking up everything. And
Oh,
this was
wow.
pretty early on in the days of them. This would have been like in the mid-aughts. So somewhere between 2001 and 2010. So it would have been when I first started traveling, because we were curious about them because they were still sort of coming out. And yeah, I have gotten caught by the when you go through them, there is a gender button or a sex button that they can press that will ignore certain characteristics like underwires if they press the lady button. And if you are wearing the wrong underclothes or having the wrong bits, some of them will go off. I remember going through Frankfurt, Germany. This would have been 5 years ago easily. And when I went through, it pinged. And at that point, I was presenting female all the time, but I hadn't had surgery yet. And I said, okay, just try the other button. I'll go through again. And it went through and I was fine. So it was fine. And the border guards, they apologized. They were being really cool about it. But yeah, they did need to press the other button for it not to go off. So I'm not sure what they detect.
Yeah, that's so weird that was like assist. And do you know approximately like what year that was?
When we lived in Oman. So yeah, past 5 to 6 years tops. So post 2015 would be the best I could do.
I guess it depends on the airport and the size and all that. Our little Halifax airport might not might not have that capability. Maybe it does.
Yeah.
Still,
well, I just find it such a weirdly specific function to have because also like
I've invented a machine that checks everyone's genitalia.
It will detect boobies.
How the hell did that get past marketing?
Yeah, exactly. Who was like, I need a machine that will tell me if a passenger has boobs?
I suppose we should be lucky they haven't put them outside bathrooms at this point. So.
Honest, listen, we can't put it past like Texas or some of those states that are outlawing this stuff. But yeah, like that like blows my mind too, because like even like there are like heavier built men that definitely like I would probably have a similar breast shape to them. Like I'm like, would that detect like what is it only like bottom genitalia? Like what? Anyways, I know no one can answer that question, but I'm just like throwing things out there because now I I want to dig into it.
And here we could actually throw it out if there's any listeners out there who have any comments, any insight on this, or have anything to add.
Any CBSA officers out there?
Yeah, email us at heysis at or connect. Is it connect at heysis.com? It's our brand new email. So connect at heysis.com, or you can DM us on social media. But we'd love to hear like other people's experiences traveling, and if they've had their bits checked out while they're going through the border. You're felt about that. Jesus. So let's pivot a little bit, because this is going to be part of like a two-part series. And I'd be really curious to hear, Isaac and Emma, what you think about as, you're spending your hard-earned money, you're taking a holiday, you're traveling, you're staying maybe within Canada, and you're going to like an Airbnb or maybe like a smaller hotel, or you're taking a tour as a same-sex couple, as a trans person, and that. What do you think, like tourism operators, what do you think like the travel industry should be doing better to just ensure that, you're not going away from that situation feeling like you've just spent your money here and you didn't really get a great vibe from your hosts or from, the tour that you were taking?
I'll put the spotlight on you first, Emma. So.
Rude. Let's see. Vacations. Have I ever been able to afford a vacation? Oh, wait, I'm a millennial, so no. But in my dream vacation, yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to some really basic things. Just basic inclusive language. Being inclusive as a company basically comes down to making it so that the language and the environment of your country isn't tailor-made for only one kind of person. You need to look at your company a little bit, look at the language that you use, look at the forms and the systems that you have in place, and try and think outside of your own experience to see if those systems are fit more than one kind of person. A really simple way is like if there's two people in the room, or if there's an application form and it just has like a space for husband and wife, say it's a couple's suite, just switch it to partner. It's not a huge deal, but it is going to make me feel safe when I'm booking that trip. I'm much more likely to actually book if the language in the advertisements, and especially in any sort of form, is inclusive. So language is a big part of it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and just to really echo on that, I worked quite a few years in hospitality, more specifically in hotels, and typically, if you see two individuals of the perceived same sex, most individuals would assume that they probably want two beds in the room. And a lot of times, if they see two people come up, they'll automatically book people into two bedrooms. But I think one of the biggest things is to always ask questions, of course, within moderation. Don't be asking the weird questions. But don't be afraid to ask questions. And if you do ask the wrong question, be open to understanding their perspective and their experiences. And don't take one experience from one trans or queer or 2S LGBTQ or what have you, individual or traveler, and associate it with every other experiences of that exact same traveler.
Yeah.
I even know traveling agencies, they have this like mindset, like this is the ideal traveler. It's typically a white, cis, straight, middle-aged man and woman who maybe have 3 kids, but their kids are probably out of the house now. So they build these like packages based on that kind of perceived notion and what these people want. But it's important to really look outside of that and be like, okay, who is our typical customer? Who is our typical client? And who are we missing in this kind of database? And who haven't we been able to actually attract to our organization or our establishment?
I love that. I mean, and it comes down to, like you say, like being intentional about it. So when you mentioned about the beds and that, like as a tourism operator, you don't have to out anybody or make anyone feel uncomfortable. You could just say, oh, like we have various rooms. Some have king beds, some have queens, some have twins. You know,
Mhm.
what would you, what's your preference? What would you
Yeah.
like?
Are you looking for two beds or one? If they want one bed, do you want a king or a queen?
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward questions, but even when I was working, I had colleagues that be like, it'd be like two men, and they'd be like, okay, or like they would kind of like joke about it. They'd be like, oh, I'm assuming you want two beds, and like the guys were like, ha ha ha, yeah, of course, we're not snuggling. But like, imagine if they were a couple, that could have been an uncomfortable situation to be like, actually, we do want one bed. So it just leaving it up to the individual to make that distinction and not to assume.
But you make a really good point there, and raise a question. How much of companies' behavior is based on the fact that if they offer two straight guys one bed, they now have a couple of really pissed off homophobic customers to deal with? Because I guarantee you that happens.
Mm.
Yeah.
You get the sort of, would you like two beds or one? What are you saying? Whoa. Just
Yeah.
asking a question. But those questions weren't okay to ask until recently. So there is an element to this of companies have to trust their customers not to flip their lids when they don't assume they're straight, because a lot of straight people are used to a world that assumes that they are straight, that never challenges that perception. And in fact, challenging that perception in any way was considered a pretty still is considered a very serious insult.
Yeah.
I think you have to be clear on your policies and values then as a company that, what do you do if you have then some customers that are upset because, they feel like, oh no, I don't like what you're doing. You need to be able to be empowered to have like your comment, your policies there to let them know that, hey, like, sorry, we don't tolerate if you have a problem, and be willing to say, look, if you have a problem, this is who we are. Maybe you're going to lose that customer, maybe, but
Yeah.
I would like to believe that, I think the idea of attracting and supporting a more diverse clientele and having space for everybody is on that's the real agenda. That's like that value should be important to you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And standing behind it so that you don't have like maybe a 17-year-old working behind the counter that has to like feel that and not feel like they're
Yeah.
Yeah. A 17-year-old that's probably making $13-14 an hour, and the manager's kind of sitting behind just not doing anything. So yeah, it starts from the top and works its way down. That's for sure.
Yeah. I guess too, for
Yeah.
small businesses, tourism operators, if you are like, you're inclusive and you're, you've got that culture, you've got the education, you're aware, like you put the visibility out there as well. So everybody can see it. So whether it's, you have like a bracelet, a rainbow bracelet on your water bottle, or you have like a, like a little tagline on your website, like everyone is welcome here. We support a place of, of human rights for everybody. We don't stand for any kind of discrimination, especially this, blah, blah, blah. You can help people research and know how safe you are before they even have to step in your door, or step on the premises. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is so good.
Yeah, I know. I'm enjoying this.
I can't wait till you're there, like with a coconut drink, and you're like the CEO. Hearing how it went.
No, this is going to be the first time I have not cross-dressed in an airport in 4 years. So that's going to be pretty wild.
We'll be so excited to catch back up with you then when you have landed in Thailand and you're working with us from over there, but to follow up on actually how.
Well, thank you very much for having me on, and I will talk to you guys soon.
Like many, many hours again of travel and layovers and several flights to get to your destination. Yeah. So, you'll have to report back.
All right, I will.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emma, for joining us today. We appreciate you taking the time to share all your wild stories and get some insights on all the fun stuff.
That's all the time we have today, folks. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Hey Sis.
The conversation doesn't have to stop here, though. If you would like to get in touch with us to ask us a question or share your story on a future episode, you can email us at connect@simplygoodform.com or visit us on our website at www.heysis.com.